Hello dear audience. So, Digging Deep. Today we have a very interesting guest among us. Hearing this, you might on Guba Publishing for the first time, or maybe you haven't heard of it, but it's my tremendous luck that I have found her and finally managed to get a hold of her. So I'm introducing to you Raya Rahman, and she's the founder and editor at Guba Publishing. And this Guba Publishing has been working in Bay Area, which is in Oakland, California. Raya Rahman is the founder and editor of a children's bilingual picture book, and which publishes and specifically focuses on diverse English books and Bengali language books and its learning tools. So, who is Raya Rahman? She finished her schooling in Scholastica, but she studied her in University of Waterloo. And after a decade of work in corporate governance, compliance, she changed her course to start a niche publishing business, which many of us don't see nowadays. After she found a gap in the marketplace for well-made and interesting books to teach or expose Bangladeshi children or Bengali speaking children all over the world. So that's a very interesting initiative, and there is a huge gap, but I think I saw her the first person to actually find this gap and do something about it. So today we will talk a bit about this Guba Publishing and how does it work. So welcome Raya Rahman. Sorry for my long introduction. So yes, how are you doing, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Tawhid. Thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
And Raya Poo, so I really want to get straight to the point. After your university education, I came to know that you have been working in corporate governance, compliance, proposals for very big companies for over a long time. So why this Guba Publishing, and what is Guba Publishing? We would love to know.
Well, you already mentioned a bit about what we do in your introduction. We make children's storybooks and learning content with a huge focus on Bangla language and telling diverse stories. We also collaborate with other organizations to raise awareness through storybooks. One of our first projects is actually with Save the Children, to make a storybook on the children, the Rohingya children in the camps in Cox's Bazar.
Okay.
So essentially, we work with stories, and we publish in English, but really our big focus is Bangla, because, as you said, I found that there are not a lot of high quality children's content in Bangla. But there is a lot in English and other languages, but not so much in Bangla.
Okay, so Apu, let's. I really wanted to ask you this question from the very beginning. I saw Guba Publishing has a very interesting logo. What's the story behind this logo about Guba Publishing? What is Guba?
Good question. So the name Guba is actually it's a nonsense name, but it is derived from two characters, two of my favorite characters, children's characters from my childhood. I don't know if you've heard of them, Tawhid. I'm sure you have. You're younger, but they're called Gupi Gain Baghabain, and it's filmed by Satyajit Ray. And
Cool.
the characters are very famous, and obviously it was made long before I was born. But I grew up watching Gupi Gain Baghabain, and we just thought of a name very quickly. My partner in this business is Inshra.
Okay.
She's not on the call right now, but she lives in London, and she's actually a very creative and talented individual. She's also a designer. And many other things, but she designed the logo. It's the G and the P together, which makes that elephant with the glasses.
Okay, but That's a really nice logo, like a very cute elephant. Like I believe like any good company starts with a very good story behind it, and also a very good logo for the brand. So where did the idea actually came from? Like now we know a little bit about the logo and where the name came from, but can you tell us a bit more about where the idea actually came from? Like why, apart from all the ideas in the world, and considering you working in a very different sector, like how did Guba Publishing fall into your head?
That's a very good question. It actually all started with my oldest daughter. She's now 10 years old, but when she was around 3 or 4, she started. I used to when she was born. I used to speak to her in Bangla, and when she was very little, she spoke Bangla. But as soon as she went, and sorry, I should say that I have not lived in Bangladesh. I lived in Canada, and now we live in the United States.
Okay.
My children are not growing up in Bangladesh,
Okay.
where I'm from. So when she was little and she started daycare and preschool, I just noticed that she started losing the language because she would go to school and everybody spoke in English. So and for some reason, she'd come home, I would just continue in English. And I didn't realize I did that. Anyway, so by the time she was 4 years old, I mean, she had really started losing the language, and I was getting a bit scared because this is my mother tongue. So I was looking for really good quality books and animation that she could see. Actually, I'm sure there is. If you go to Bangladesh, you go to India, you will probably find some really good books out there. But in Canada, in Vancouver, I searched online and I couldn't find anything. So that's when the idea kind of came to me that, this doesn't exist, but our language is very rich. It has a very long history. And obviously, there are many people who speak it. It's just, and I also remember that when I was a kid, I didn't speak any English. I went to an English medium school and I learned, but then I also learned from books and watching cartoons and stuff like that. So I figured that, okay, there's still hope. I can still expose her to really good quality content made for children, and she can learn. That's where the idea really came from. That was a long time ago. As I said, I thought of this idea when my daughter was 3 or 4 years old, and now she's 10. But I didn't do anything with it because I was working. I had a full-time job. I think at the time I was working for the Canadian government, and the reason I worked in those lines is because my parents always wanted me to do what is practical, and those things were always practical: to have a good corporate job, to work for the government, and doing too many artistic things didn't seem very practical. So I feel like I was always interested in artistic work and creative work, but it just made more sense to have a full-time job, which gave you a paycheck all the time, like stuff like that. So that's why I was in that world. But the reason I made the shift is because eventually my husband got a job in the United States, and I had to quit my job in Canada. And then instead of coming to the US and looking for a job, moved to the US 3 years ago. I thought this was the perfect opportunity to just start a business. So that's why I made the shift. If I was still working in Canada, I might not have started this business. I would have still been thinking about it.
Yes,
There was
true.
life circumstances.
Yeah, but it takes a lot of time. No, like juggling between two things, like one your job and one your business with such a busy lifestyle. So
Yeah.
it's understandable, but your initiative, it's so colorful and it's so nice that I'm sure like a lot of people will like take notice of that work, because it's great. Anything that's a great work, sooner or later people notice you. So my next question is like, what's the current reach of Guba? Like who are reading them and who are the most buyers, and uh, like what is your future plan right now to reach more children?
So we launched Guba Publishing in Bangladesh last year,
Mm-hmm.
so November of last year at Dhaka Lit Fest.
Okay.
That
Nice.
we did that, yeah, we did that. Well, because Dhaka Lit Fest is a big festival there. All our families in Bangladesh, but we were honestly thinking that for our books, maybe the diaspora Bengali market it would be our customers. We found out that Bangladesh obviously has a great need for good quality books as well. So our current reach in Bangladesh is through the retail stores. Our biggest or the biggest store where we're in right now is our own. So
Okay.
we're stocked there. We're in all the big bookstores like Bengal Boy, Bookworm, Pathok Shamabesh. So we are selling through the retail channels in Bangladesh. In America and the United Kingdom, where my partner lives, where my partner Inshra lives, we started with an online store, and we just for this year we just wanted to do a bit of market study. So we didn't spend anything on marketing. We just decided to do word of mouth and see what the reaction was. I have to say that the reaction was really good, but we also found that it's good only among the people who are actively wanting to teach their children Bangla, for
Okay.
example.
Okay.
Like not and in our culture, not everybody is into books. So we found that out as well. Um, in the future, so this is just this year where we didn't want to invest too much money on marketing or anything. We just wanted to just quietly sit back, make our products available, and see what the reaction was from a limited with a limited reach. So now we have more knowledge. Knowledge is power. So next year we're planning to be a bit more professional in our approach. We're no longer trying to do word of mouth, but we will actually invest in marketing to reach more people in the diaspora markets in the USA and Canada and the UK. UK and some parts of Europe possibly, and we're thinking that Bangladesh with retail, the way it's going with retail, it's fine. And one other thing we really want to explore is going into the digital space, because most people, a lot of kids even, they just watch YouTube, and the whole purpose of this is to make sure that the Bangla language is not lost when children move away from their home country, and also because it makes it more modern. Like I know that if we're always reading classic Bangla books, it's like asking children in America to always read Shakespeare. That they don't always read Shakespeare. They never read Shakespeare. In fact, they read kids' books. That's what we want to do. We want to make it accessible, modern, fun for children.
Yes, like there's another point that came into my mind while I was listening to you. So uh, like after being born and brought up for so long years in Bangladesh, like there's this perspective I can't just get out of my head, that like people seem to think that being the best in English is being modern, but in the end, when you think internationally, being able to speak more than two, three, four languages is actually being modern. So, and Bala with a lot of people all over the world, like actually has its place. It's not just English, it's not just like French, Spanish, or German, or whatever you think of. Like there are a lot of Bangladeshi or Bengali speaking people all over the world as well. So, like for the parents who doesn't take care of their like children's Bangla, like is there any message that you want to give them?
You brought up a really important point, actually. You're right, Tawhid, that even in Bangladesh, when I was growing up, there is a huge preference for learning English. But the thing is that it doesn't matter because kids learn Bangla anyways, right? They're in their own country. But when my own children were growing up in America, I found that it was I found the need to teach Bangla very strongly, and perhaps people in Bangladesh don't feel that need. I think there's a preference for English because we were colonized by the British not too long ago, and
Yeah.
and they were the ruling class, and that's why it'll take a few more generations to get over that mindset perhaps. And the other reason is that English is kind of the language of the world. It's seen as a very practical language. If you learn English, you'll get a better job. So there's a big value addition to learning English. So that's probably why most parents think that maybe put Bangla as a second preference. But what I do have to say to parents is that definitely any amount of scientific research will show that knowing more than one language is extremely beneficial to a child's development. That's been proven scientifically. So basically, the line people use is that knowing more than one language makes you smarter. Um, that's true, but I mean, for me, it was a very personal matter that this is the language that I speak, and this is the language that I wanted my children to be able to understand and speak. Even if it's not perfect, at least a little bit. Uh, and if somebody else doesn't feel that way, that's I think that's fine too. Actually, what we want to do as a company is actually make it not guilt trip people into like buying our products, like, oh, you should teach your children Bangla. It's actually the opposite. We want kids and the parents to like the book so much or like the content so much that they want to do it, not because they have to or they feel they need to. So that's kind of what we want to achieve. I don't know how far we'll go with that, but that's the dream.
Okay, my like you have answered me like a lot of like my mind's questions. Thanks a lot. Just one last
No
question
problem.
to wrap it up. It's from a like a teamwork perspective, maybe. My last question would be like, how do you and your partner Inshra Shakhawat Russell, who is not here right now, how do you two manage this teamwork? Between England and Canada, between England and USA right now. How do you guys are doing it? This teamwork.
Actually, we are just right now. We have been researching collaboration tools.
Yeah.
In the past, all up until now, we have used the following tools to collaborate. We used Google Drive to share all our documents. We
Hmm.
used Facebook Messenger to call each other all the time. WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger to call each other
Okay.
all the time. And you know what? Like we just work with our time zones. Like sometimes I have to talk to Intra, at night, and she works very late into the night, and so we have to work with each other's time zone. But we just realized that for next year, if we want to grow our business, these tools will, they're only good for now. But for next year, we were just looking at a couple of that we can, subscribe to that can give us like an all-in-one solution. And so so going forward, that's what we're gonna do. But so far, we've just used like whatever free tools were available,
Okay.
and like everybody does, like kind of like students working on a project.
Okay.
But 2019 will be a different year for us. We're planning to be a lot more professional.
Okay. Like that's lovely. Like that's I think that's how teamwork and passion builds in. Yeah, I loved it. I loved talking to you. Thanks a lot,
Thank
Rapo.
you.
Thanks a lot for sharing all the knowledge and information. I think that this generation, right, like the next generation, like who were like born after 1980s or 1985 or even after 1990s, who are just getting married now, they will be very much interested in buying your books because this is the future. Like this is what I believe is the future. I also believe that we lack real quality books or real quality knowledge that is made or tailored specifically for children. So you are the future. So like I wish you luck, and I think this has a very good potential to grow, not just in diasporic Bangladeshi communities, but I think in Bangladesh and Kolkata or West Bengal, wherever people speak most Bengali, like I'm sure like it has a chance. Like I really wish all the best for you. Thank you so much, Rapo, for
Thank you,
coming to my
Tawhid.
podcast. Like it was
You're very
lovely.
welcome.
It was lovely talking to you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.